Firstly, it would only be in JNU that we have a post-dinner movie on child labour and have a hall that is full. I wonder that there will be 5 people who will gather to hear us speak. So I'm invited to be there. Would you prefer that I speak in English or in Hindi?
English.
English is fine. I truly believe that the legislation that was passed unanimously by Parliament with very little debate is the most damaging pieces of legislation for millions of India's youth workers, children and their futures. But I have reference to even the questions that that we must ask that reflect the kind of society we have become. And so I'm really happy that we are having this discussion today. This has been a tumultuous year in some ways, and it really began with a young man who at Harvard University taking his life. And I think something that he wrote in his first and last letter to the world, as he described, is at the heart of what we are going to discuss today. When he said, I could not escape the fatal accident of my birth. I believe that it is perhaps the greatest indictment of what we have achieved and not achieved in these 70 years, that for the majority of India's children, they are unable to escape the fatal accident of their birth. The fact that the accident of their birth determines whether they will live at all, whether they will survive their childhood, whether what kind of nutrition they'll have access to, whether they'll have an education, what kind of education, how long will they be able to study, and what jobs are open to them and what jobs are not. And so on, and what kind of work they'll do, what kind of, if they reach old age, what kind of old age will they spend. All of this is still determined by the accident of birth. And tragically, for millions of children, that accident is a fatal one, and it continues to be so. And the only thing that could change that destiny of birth would be if we had resolved and implemented the idea of that everything else can come later, but every child, regardless of the accident of her birth, must have equal chances in childhood. And the Right to Education Act did say, with all its limitations, that a child between 6 and 14 would have the right to free and compulsory education. But it never said the right to free and compulsory equal education. And so in any case, wherever you are born, the accident of where you are born, the education system today completely mirrors it. And so the children of the very rich would go abroad, the children who slightly less rich would study in very elite schools and so on, and coming down, and the poor person in a village who would be studying in a school, if at all, with one teacher for 5 classes, and then there's a whole segment of children who would never get the chance to study. And we have not done nearly enough. We've done too little to change this reality. And you must remember that the countries that we set up as role models, both the countries in the north, the centers of global capital, but also the fast-growing economies that preceded us, South Korea, China, all of them did go for market growth, but on a foundation of universal quality education. And we haven't done that. In fact, I think if you look around, what India is trying to do has no parallel in the world. We're trying to achieve and sustain this pace of economic growth on the most unequal foundations without public investments in education and healthcare. So what happens to children who are not in school? What are the life chances they have? Many of us have a sense, in popular discussion, people say child labor is unfortunate, but as long as India is poor, families have no option and they have to send their children to work. So in a sense, the rationalization, the principal rationale for child labor has always been that as long as there is poverty, there will be child labor. I think, what child rights activists have helped us see is actually that the reverse is true. As long as there is child labor, poverty will be perpetuated. And let me explain. Right here in JNU, when we had, the whole country got to know of many really charismatic young people who spoke for justice and truth with so much passion. What was really attractive about these young people was also their stories, and to have the son of not even an Angan, the lowest. I was really thinking she's probably the lowest paid government employee of all, because the Anganwadi worker is like the lowest paid, but her helper is really even lower paid, and her son is the president of the JNU Students' Union, and somebody who's captured the imagination now of millions of people across the country. Rohit Vemila's own story is again a story. I mean, I was sort of reading more and more about him, and we hear about, I'm sure you all know about his mother being picked up as a little girl, the daughter of construction workers, and then she's adopted in a sense, but treated as a domestic help, and then her son starts growing up and he rebels against it, and how he went out and he used to work with his hands, he worked on construction sites, but still saw himself through an education. And we saw somebody who could have become a science writer like Carl Sagan as he wrote. And when that letter went around, Carl Sagan's wife read that letter, and she responded that what he's written is a reminder of what human civilization loses in terms of lost potential because of prejudice and bias. So what I'm trying to say is that these young people have struggled against enormous odds, and the son of a domestic helper or an Anganwadi helper being able to display the kind of qualities of heart and mind and leadership that they displayed is only possible because they got the chance to study. With all the other deprivations, they got a chance of an education. And the importance of public education right from preschool, as he reminded us, to universities, is something that we owe all our children. when we, so when I say child labor is not the result of poverty but its cause, a child who remains in labor rather than in school will have no option except to do the work that her parents did. So my mother's a manual scavenger. That is all that, and at the age of 13, 14, I'll start doing that. And my father is a distress migrant to the fields of Punjab, then that's where I will end up at the age of 13, 14. If I have no other, if my parents are picking rags and I can't have an education, that is what I will become. But the only way I can break out of that cycle is that despite all the efforts, my family and the state ensures that I get the chance to have a full education. That is what the Constitutional Amendment of 2009 promised. Within that, and one other thing that I think we need to remember is that for every child who works, there is one adult who is deprived of work. And so if you really ensure that no child is in work, you will ensure that that number of adults will be in work who will be then able to take care of their children and ensure that they don't have to work. So I think that's the second thing I wanted to say, is that the argument that rationalizes child labor because of poverty needs to be challenged and turned on its head. So the law in India, incredibly, and if you read the debates, it is precisely this rationalization that I was speaking about, which led to people saying that India is a poor country and we have to, child labor is a reality, we'll have to accept it, and we accepted it for too many decades. The only exception was that there was no ban on children working above the age of 14 so far. And the only ban on children working under the age of 14 with no lower limit actually was that they cannot work in hazardous occupations. And I think that it took a long time for people who, for child rights activists to push the definition wider and wider, what is hazardous. And I think it was only in 2008 that domestic work was recognized to be, so domestic child labor actually became illegal only as recently as 2008. But so on, and this list kept expanding, and we had about 83 categories and processes of work that were recognized to be hazardous for a child. And through that, a large amount of child work gradually started becoming unlawful. But as I said, child labor itself was not illegal, and child labor of any kind, hazardous or non-hazardous, was permitted for a child after the age of 14. Now, the agitation, the demand was growing that you have a right to education act. How can you then have any child in labor and work? And people like Shanta Sinha say that a child who is not in school is child labor. So when you have census definitions, they say so many children are in school, so many children are in labor, and then what about the other children? And sometimes they call the nowhere children. But we have to recognize that the nowhere child is in work. They're working in the house, they're doing other things. And so the demand was that no, now all child labor, after the 2009 amendment, there's no way that child labor can continue to be legalized. We have at present a government which I find, that we remembered for many things, but as I wrote in the year, when the second year anniversary, there are many examples one of the things that will be remembered as, I think, is one of, as a republic of lies, in a sense. Because whatever you say you're doing nothing for farmers. If you say this is a farmer's budget, we're doing so much for farmers, we've increased all our budgets for the farmers. Then you look carefully and you find all that they've done is they've shifted one head to another head, and actually there's no greater allocation, and so on and so forth, and a number of things. So here once again, what we were told is that we are actually now fully banning child labour up to the age of 14, and for children between 14 and 18, we are restricting child labour only to non-hazardous occupations. Now that both are things that one needs to, one would normally celebrate and say that's wonderful. But then once you've done that, you have put in two sort of caveats which turn on the head what you said you set out to do. So instead of, so they've said all child labour is banned except the working of children in what are described as family enterprises. Now, family enterprises is a term, and they define it as work in which father, mother, brother, sister, father's brother and sister, mother's brother and sister are work that is organized around by them is a family enterprise. Now, there are studies which show that something like about 80% of work by children is always within, you're doing farm work, you're doing bidi rolling in the house, you're doing a whole range of activities which are actually out of home production. But even now, say there's a dhaba owned by your uncle, and uncle has a very large sort of definition in rural India in any case. So a child working in a dhaba, for instance, is legal because it is a family enterprise. And so you go back to, and by stretching it, your mother is a domestic help and you go along with her and help her clean the floors. You're helping your family in its work. And so the expansion, and so that's one thing that they did. And the second, they said except in hazardous occupations, but which would have been fine then. But then hazardous occupations, the list from 83 is brought down to 3, of which 2, they have mining and dealing with explosives. And the third is hazardous occupations as defined in the Factories Act. Now again, I find that, to my mind, as much as I can understand it, it's simply doublespeak. Obviously, if something is hazardous for an adult, it will certainly be hazardous for a child. The whole business about having a separate list is to recognize that in childhood you cannot do things that an adult might be able to do. So in a sense, it's not a list of 3, but it's actually a list of 2 as far as I'm concerned, that is retained. So in a sense, you reopen the doors completely. And so for children above the age of 14, you said they cannot work in hazardous occupations, but then the meaning of hazardous occupation has then been narrowed down so much that it again mostly loses meaning. And this is another example of showing that you're doing one thing but actually doing something which is exactly the opposite. And there are 2 more points I'd like to make, and then I'll ask Usha to come in. One of them is people argue, and you have many arguments that people say, but what is wrong with a child learning the trade of her father or mother? To my mind, if we take that argument forward, we're basically saying what's wrong with caste. And there's, why should, you're saying a potter's child must learn pottery and a weaver's child must learn weaving. Why should a potter's child have to learn pottery? Why can't she be a poet, as I wrote? Why can't a potter's child be a poet? Why can't be a scavenger's child be a scientist? Why can't a tanner's child be a philosopher? And why can't a middle class person feel a talent for working with her hands? So we, by saying that this amendment to the law is justified because a child should have the opportunity to learn her parents' occupation, is something, particularly with the history of 1,000 years that we have behind us, is simply a rationalization of the idea of caste. And we might argue then that no, but working with one's hands is part of a good education. I can't agree with you more. But then everybody should be working with their hands. And if anything, a child of the poor will, whatever you do, will be working with their hands. It's really the children of the rich who should then be put out to work. If you believe that working is a good part of education. So I think that's another argument that we need to challenge and interrogate. And the last thing that I wanted to say was that it is not by accident that this is being promoted in a context where markets are the god and economic growth is the ultimate objective. I was actually a member of the National Advisory Council, and during that, this child labour amendment discussions had begun. And actually, I could not believe it, but we had officials who actually came in and put it in writing that if we ban child labour, India's economic growth will be affected. And they said that children, India's advantage is that we have children who are able to produce at lower costs, and therefore our products will be cheaper, and therefore we'll have an economic advantage. I mean, they actually said this, and I found it hard to believe, and I'm saying that we really think that India's economic growth has to be carried on the thin shoulders of working children. But that is really, and I'd like to explain that. See what has happened in the last 15-20 years. We're seeing almost in net terms jobless growth. The few jobs that are being created are largely not in the formal sector. The factory floor is more or less gone into history, where you have workers working together with some, organized into trade unions, protected in some way, or at least organized to demand their rights under the law. What big capital wants today is submissive and unprotected and extremely low-paid work, and they've accomplished it through the increased casualization of work. And so the big brands absolve themselves of any responsibility to the person who's actually working, because that person is not their employee any longer and is not in an office or a factory which is run by them. So that work is then subcontracted and subcontracted and subcontracted, and ends up somewhere in either a slum or in a village with largely very poor women working 16 hours, 18 hours trying to do those tasks. And when she in any case is being exploited, but when she has to fulfill her quota and target and try to earn some money, who is going to help her except her child when he comes back? Another defense is that the law is fine because we are saying it's only after school, so we are not stopping a child from studies. So if a child is enrolled, that is enough. So firstly, we know today 99% children are enrolled officially. But how many of them are actually in school? So once again, that becomes an alibi. But even if a child is in school, if a child of a more well-to-do person comes home and then rests, plays, watches television, has some tutor to help him, does homework and goes to sleep, and another child comes home and gets down to working and working and working, and then goes to sleep. There's obviously, what are you talking about, equal chances? So I think this is part of both the neoliberal imagination of how they would like to convert the poor into a large reserve army of submissive, unorganized workers. I was in Tamil Nadu, where the spinning mills have largely adolescent girls. The scheme was called Sumangli, now it is not, where you come in at the age of 13 or 14 and they put them in large factories which are like jails, and these girls stay there for years. They get about 2 or 3 days leave in a year. They work about 16, 18 hours a day, and you're told that you're doing this so that you can earn enough money for your dowry at the end of it. When I went to see it, and they're so terrified that girls are not allowed to, not able to speak. So some people took me actually to the few girls who were on leave, and we went to their village, and that's where they spoke in great fear, and they talked about how this. And then what was really interesting, I asked people about the history of the spinning mills in Tamil Nadu, and they said that in the 80s, the spinning mills were largely operated by adult male workers who were organized into unions. And they wanted, and there were a number of strikes, etc. So they wanted to convert that. And so now they've succeeded in these 15, 20 years to eliminate that set of the adult male workers into adolescent female workers. And I think that's the face of no capital. And all the biggest global brands in the world are actually sourcing from Tamil Nadu is one of the largest source areas. So child labor is really a story about global capital on the one hand and about caste on the other. And I think we need to recognize these amendments as advancing both of these agendas. And we need to fight, we need to resist these, and we need to be able to say to somebody like Rohit Memela that no, at last we do have a country where it is not the accident of your birth which determines the rest of your life. It is the qualities of your head and the qualities of your heart and the soaring of your dreams and the extent of your hard work that will determine your life and not the accident of your birth. But I think that's a long way.